I'm about as real as they come.
All my beats tailored by Joe. House Digital.
Maserati, Rick in Detroit. Convertible bird in Miami. Graduated summa cum laude. Strip club made a tsunami. Carlton Hines with the ball game. Grateful Edmonds with the snowflakes. Craig Pettis in the M-Town. Sal Magluta with the boat game. Falcone with the cocaine. Like Freeway Ricky with the plug game. Like Monster Cody in South Central. Larry Davis from close range.
Yeah, we back. It's your boy Popalot. Mobb ties. We on our way to Mississippi with it. Prentiss, Jefferson, Davis County to be exact. Now, before my solid ones in the area get in the comment box, I need y'all to call the sheriff and tell him we about to act up. Now, the gentleman that we're going to be covering today is going to be a guy by the name of David Warner, but you can call him Super Dave, but he probably prefers Mississippi Dave, or you could call him Mr. on the Run from the FBI or whatever. Now, before we get into the exploits of Mr. Warner, let's take a look into the tour guide on Jefferson Davis County first, since this is our first time around here. Now, Jefferson Davis County is a county located in the United States of Mississippi. As of 2010, the census said the population was right around 12,500. The county seat is Prentiss, whatever that means. Now, the county is named after a Mississippi senator and the Confederate President Jefferson Davis. The county was carved out of Covington and Lawrence counties in March 1906. Now, the governor at the time, James K. Vanderman, signed the bill creating the county on May 9th, 1906. All right, so now I see what's going on around here, Confederate type of shit. Okay, we about to act up for real. You better call the sheriff. Now that we see what we dealing with, let's talk a little bit about our subject, David Warner. So he's pretty much like one of those shadowy figures, but he's definitely, based on the media coverage and him being named a top 15 most wanted fugitive by the FBI, is gonna pretty much put him right there on the list. But his world began to change on June 22nd, 2004, and this is according to WLBT, after a 3-year state and federal investigation into the sales of cocaine in Jefferson Davis County. They would say it paid off. 4 people have been arrested and more arrests were expected. The suspects were taken into custody on that Tuesday in Bassville, Mississippi, which United States Attorney Dunn Lampton says has become a source for cocaine from Mobile, Memphis, and Jacksonville. Now, federal, state, and local drug agencies filled Lucas Road just west of Prentiss, Tuesday morning in front of a sprawling estate of David Warner, a person of interest in a 3-year federal drug investigation. Warner wasn't home when the agents arrived, but earlier in the day in Brassville, agents were able to arrest a guy by the name of Al Torres Applewhite, Malcolm Hartzog, who authorities would go on to say was David Warner's second in command. Or let's just call him Super Dave, man. Come on, that should just seem so much more solid. Now, another guy was arrested by the name of Christopher Booth, and also Brad Booth. Not sure of the relation of those two. Now, the federal government says that they were charged with possession of cocaine and marijuana with the intent to deliver. Along with Warner, arrest warrants have been issued for a person by the name of Jackie Newsom and another person by the name of Kendrick Applewhite. Not sure of their relation to Al Torres Applewhite, but they were also facing the same charges. Now, the sheriff at the time, Henry McCullum, will go on to say, and if you're the sheriff now, you better be pulling up soon. Now, he would go on to say there has been an ongoing investigation of drug activity throughout the county, and it has been taking place at the MBN, and other agencies have been surveilling these areas for several weeks and for a few months now. The morning he said that morning he was advised that they were going to come into their county, and pretty much they came in and they raided and they began to shut down the operation of Mr. Warner or Super Dave. So now that's going to be the first set of it. Now, those people that I mentioned would go on to go to trial, but Mr. Warner, he had other plans in mind. Now, Mr. Warner was not, he was heavily affiliated with one of the biggest drug dealers in the country, since 2000. And it was going to be a gentleman from Memphis, and he's going to be charged with a number of murders. They're going to say he had ties to the Mexican cartel, and this gentleman I'm speaking of is going to be a guy by the name of Craig Pettis. Now, when Super Dave was indicted, he was able to get his hands on that indictment before the indictment was handed down, and we know this because when FBI agents rushed his house, they found a copy of that sealed indictment, which he was not supposed to have because they were supposed to be bringing it to him because they was indicting him. So I couldn't find any information on how he was able to get his hands on that indictment, but hey, he might have found it. I don't know. They might have mailed it to him. But so with him having impending knowledge of them coming to arrest him, he was probably able to get his ducks in a row, line up a little bit of cheese, a few plays or whatever. It's not said how far in advance that he had it, but it's just said that he had it. Now, due to his relationship, or actually, he would go on to say that Pettis, he saw a change in Craig Pettis from the one that he knew, because he met Craig Pettis in the late 90s through another Craig Pettis associate by the name of Antonio Allen, who was a member of his organization. Now, Warner had been a drug dealer in the southern part of Mississippi, and he came to Memphis for drag races, and through Allen he met Craig Pettis, and that became a part of their group. And then he pretty much became a part of that group. They partied at Memphis night spots, and they eventually began working together in the drug trade. And from what Super Dave would say, we all knew that we basically had similar occupations. Now, Warner sold cocaine to Pettis 2 or 3 times, and later Pettis would begin supplying Warner, who grew his operations in Mississippi, and they were centered in the small towns of Prentiss, where Warner had lived his whole life and until he fled to Mexico, and that was in 2004. Now, authorities would end up catching up with him, but it wouldn't be when they thought. So, like I said, he fled from prosecution in 2004. It would be about 2006 before he would be in handcuffs and being prosecuted by the federal government. Now, when he was apprehended, Jim Kinslow, who was commander of the Pearl Rivers Narcotics Task Force, which served Jefferson, Davis, Lawrence, and Marion counties, would go on to say it's good that he was arrested. It's a good thing that he's off the streets. He's been on the move a lot, and he was just staying one step ahead, but it was just a matter of time and teamwork before he was captured. Now, Super Dave would end up being captured on a Friday in Tocula, Mexico, a city just southwest of Mexico City, and at that time he was expelled from Mexico and into the waiting hands of U.S. Marshal Service in McAllen, Texas. Now, he would end up making an initial court appearance in McAllen, and then he would be returned to Mississippi in 2 weeks to face his federal case. Now, what we need to not forget to mention was that Super Dave would end up testifying in Craig Pettis' trial as far as the connection to Craig Pettis and the cartel as well as his years on the run with Craig Pettis in Mexico and the drug conspiracy, racketeering, and also the murder for hire trial of Clinton and Marvin Lewis, who were the murder cousins of Craig Pettis, who we'll probably detail on a later episode at some time. Warner would go on to testify that he was ready to get out of the business twice, at least temporarily, because he felt like he was attracting too much attention. And he said verbatim, "I told Craig I was ready to back away." Now, he said that in a conversation that he had with Craig Pettis in 2002, where he said that I had gotten warnings, a lot of warnings, that I was on the radar. Now, Pettis knew many of the people that Super Dave worked with, and Pettis began working with them, but still urging Warner to do one more package, one more package, one more package. Now, Warner described his growing role in the drug trade as becoming a dominant factor in Mississippi, and he was on the radar of authorities. Now, Warner, he would eventually be tipped off that his house had been raided and there was a warrant for his arrest, so he fled to Dallas at first. Now, from there, he said he was given instructions from Pettis. He would walk across the U.S.-Mexico border from Laredo, Texas, into Nuevo Laredo, and then he flew from there to Acapulco, where Pettis was living at the time. Now, they said that Pettis already had a home rented for Super Dave at the time, and Super Dave would go on to say that we were a community of individuals on the run. Warner said that the other Americans that he got to know there, he and Pettis still stood out. We were probably the only black guys in the whole city on a regular basis. And he said he noticed a change in Pettis, who was trying to stay up to date on a series of drug busts and arrests in Memphis that were unraveling the organization, even as it was selling millions of dollars worth of cocaine. And he pretty much said, as far as that time with him and Craig Pettis, because they pretty much both were facing trials, he said Craig Pettis' whole demeanor had changed, and he said he wanted to be like the cartels. And the scary part was, we never had talked about having anything done to anybody. And he would say the first conversation of violence was when Pettis found out that some suspects cooperating with the federal government of Warner in Mississippi were about to bond out, and he asked if I wanted to have something done to them. Now, Warner would testify in Craig Pettis' trial. He told Craig Pettis, "What are you talking about? What about the guys still in prison?" And he said, "That's the difference between me and you." Apparently, that's what he told Craig Pettis. And he said that at first, Warner thought Craig Pettis was talking above his head, and he would go on to say that if anybody ticked him off, he got to the point where they got to go, Warner said. Meanwhile, Warner was learning of the violent deaths of several members of the organization back in Memphis, so he didn't really have a full comprehension of kind of who Craig Pettis was. He was just used to doing business. Now, in a later conversation with Pettis, Warner recalled of a shocking and the saddest day of his exile in Mexico, aside from the time that he was captured, is when Craig Pettis admitted that he had Antonio Allen killed. And if you remember, Antonio Allen was the initial connection, or the person that introduced Super Dave to Craig Pettis at the drag races in Memphis. So if this don't go to show you that it come full circle, you get the penitentiary, you get death. Not too many people get away, man. It's education, not glorification. Y'all make sure y'all follow me on Instagram, on Twitter. It's your boy Popalot, POP_A_LOT. And we're going to be back with some more real trill spill shit. It's the mob. Mob ties.